How's it going, everybody? Happy Friday from all of me to you, and welcome back to Grifftalks, a show where we as fans openly talk about NASCAR. Now, before we begin, do not comment on this video. Now, I mean, you guys can if you want, but I know there's some people that will just immediately throw their question or comment or whatever into it without actually watching the video. But I want you guys to make sure to watch this first before you throw down your comments. And the reason for that is because next Monday, I'm going to have a big announcement regarding my next big project. And when I mean big, I mean like what if Dale Earnhardt was still alive? Big. So what's going to happen is Monday I'm going to have that video. Wednesday I'm still going to do the diecast of the week as normal. But then Friday, what I'm going to do that Friday is I'm going to take a majority of that week's episode of Grifftalks to answer your questions from Monday. Because the reason why is because I'm only human. And I feel like I would know everything and I've been trying to nail as many corners as possible. But since I'm only one person, there could be some areas left wide open. So until then, that's all I'm going to say about it. Just watch out for that announcement video coming this Monday. The only, I guess, hint that I can give you guys is you guys saw Inner Tunnel Short 33, which was yesterday. That's the only, I guess, hint I can give to you as to what is going on with this next big project. And then one last thing, the next episode of Grifftalks, it's still going to be a news show. Like, I'll still talk about results from Martinsville, and then I'll talk about previews from Texas and other little news things. I'm just not going to do anything with comments. So nothing from this episode, but comments from Monday's episode, plus like questions that you guys have but you want to remain anonymous. I'll open up options for that. But again, I'll talk more about that in Monday's episode. So if you guys can, please spread the word. My big announcement video will be next Monday. Now let's talk about the Xfinity race. So last Saturday, the Xfinity guys were at Auto Club Speedway. And so there, I'm going to quickly break down the top 10. As you guys know, Kyle Larson got his first Xfinity win of this season in the 42 NEOs Chevrolet. Joey Logano, my pick to win, finished second. Kyle Busch finished third. Eric Jones fourth. William Byron, the top Xfinity regular, finished fifth. Bubba Wallace, this is his fourth sixth place finish in a row. Bubba Wallace loves six. That is a huge news story. And then the other thing that came out earlier on Thursday, they did have a lug nut violation post-inspection. And so the only penalty is that the crew chief was fined $5,000. There's nothing really too intense about that, but that is what is up. So then the guy to look out for, Elliott Sadler, he finished 7th. Brendan Poole finished 8th. Justin Allgaier 9th. And then Ty Dillon in the 3-car finished 10th. So fun fact about this race, did you know that 31 cars finished on the lead lap in this race? That is shocking because you would think with all these bigger teams that go down to the Xfinity series, you'd think it'd be like 20 or something like that. But no, like there were several like smaller teams that ended up finishing on the lead lap. So good job to everyone that did finish on the lead lap. And then as for the actual rundown of the race, it was very formulaic, and I've noticed there's like a formula now to how races are run. Like there'll be long green flag runs for the first 2/3, 3/5, or 4/5 of the race or so, and then we would have a spurt of cautions at the very end. There was some good racing between Joey Logano and Kyle Larson, don't get me wrong, but cautions came on in to make the race exciting, and Kyle Larson was able to pull it off at the very end. Now let's move on to the Cup Series. Cup Series was also at Auto Club Speedway, and now the bridesmaid is finally a bride. Or in this case, a groom, because it'd be impossible for Kyle Larson to be a groom because he's a female, but I'm not going to get into that conversation right now. Anyway, Kyle Larson finally won a race. First time he's won this season. Very strong driver all season long. So Kyle Larson wins, and then how about Brad Keselowski? He had some trouble in lap 4, got spun around by Jimmy Johnson and a couple other folks. He comes back to finish second in a completely battered car. Clint Bowyer, how about him finishing third? That is his first top 5 since 2015, so congrats to him and that team. Martin Truex Jr. finished 4th, pretty much strong car all race long. Joey Logano finished 5th. Then Jamie McMurray, Kyle Larson's teammate, finished 6th. Daniel Suarez, second top 10 in a row for him, finished 7th. Kyle Busch finished 8th, Ryan Blaney 9th, and Chase Elliott finished 10th. Now, some of the things that were not so good was Matt Kenseth. He got strong at the very end, but he got loose off turn number 2, and he had a hard crash into the inside wall, taking himself out. And currently he's like around 25th in points right now. So not the best start to the season for Matt Kenseth. But then the other team I want to talk about is Hendrick Motorsports. Because right now the only Hendrick team that's doing all right is Chase Elliott. Because right now, Casey Kane, he finished 20th. Chase Elliott, as I mentioned, finished 10th. Dale Earnhardt Jr. finished 16th. Not a good start to him either. And then Jimmy Johnson finished 21st. Now everyone's all like, oh, should this be a concern for Jimmy Johnson? No, this is what Jimmy Johnson does, remember? Jimmy Johnson, he usually sucks, and then somehow he's going to find his way into the chase and somehow win the championship. So honestly, you can threaten, be concerned about Jimmy Johnson all the time, but he's going to find a way to the championship. Let's just be honest here. Now this race was definitely like the Xfinity race, where there was some really long green flag runs. And I mean, the only good thing about it was the stage-ending breaks. It definitely made the race feel shorter, but it also made it not as boring. But then what happened was, I believe it was Greg Galding had a tire failure, and thus because of that, cars got bunched together, and we have a green-white checker finish, and Kyle Larson won. So congrats to him. Hopefully we'll see him more in victory lane as the season goes on. That's the Michigan guard I got right there. Now let's talk about the question of the week. So the question of the week was, what was your guys' opinion on Xfinity guys racing at Indy? Is it a smart move? Is it a dumb move? What did you guys think? Now, most of you guys agreed with me that it should not be there and they should go back to Lucas Oil Raceway, which is what the name of the track is now. But there are three people that they brought up some interesting points that I kind of want to talk about. First one's from Xerox, and he talked about track diversity, and he also talked about the New Hampshire race from 2000. So first of all, the track diversity, what he talks about there is he wants, or that there should be more diverse tracks across the schedule. Because now there's so many cookie cutter tracks that it's just the same thing over and over and over again. Like there's no point. It's the same thing every single time. And then when he's talking about New Hampshire 2000, he was talking about how in the fall 2000 race at New Hampshire, they put restrictor plates on the cars. And because of that, no lead changes. Jeff Burton led every single lap. And I think there were only like 2 cautions. Really boring race, and I fear that's what's going to happen at Indy as well. Now the next part comes from D West 9 Cubs, and he talked about history and prestige of Indianapolis. Now, I agree with that. Because some people say like Indy as a whole is a boring track for NASCAR because it is tough to pass there, and I agree with that. But that's what makes Indianapolis Motor Speedway so unique. The Cup Series should go there because prestigious sport, prestigious track, they should come together, that's not a problem. But when you throw a second series in there, that just makes it a lot more problematic than what it should, and the Xfinity Series should work their way up from Lucas Oil Raceway. Brett Moon 26, he talked about the Test the Waters series. Those are some very interesting words, but he's right, because what's happening now, because I don't know if it's like, if NASCAR could afford it or funding or something like that, because I know they do like testing, but they only use like 3 cars. I wish they did like a bigger test where they could get like 40 test cars and do like a mock like 20 lap race or something like that to get an idea of how the cars do interact. But instead what they do is they throw these experiments out and it's like, oh, it's going to be an experiment race. So that everybody, fans, drivers, everyone alike are there for the experimentation. And it's like, why do you throw that change out in the middle like that? That makes no sense at all. So overall, hopefully NASCAR can come to their senses and realize that fans do make this sport go, and we, for the most part, believe that Lucas Oil Raceway is the best place for the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series to go. And now let's talk about NASCAR Authentics. This is the first time I've talked about the Authentics here on my channel, but as you guys know, I'm a huge collector of the Authentics ever since it started back in 2016. On Thursday, they did announce Wave 3 of the cars coming out, and I'm going to talk about each of them. First of all, we got a double dosage of Daniel Suarez. We got his champion car, and then his regular car that he drove in the Xfinity Series in 2016. Now, for that regular Xfinity car, I'm okay with that if it came out last year. But for whatever reason, they decided to throw it out now, and I just don't think it's going to be as popular now because it came out at such a weird time. And then what was worse is that champion car, where it's pretty much its basic car, but then on the top it says Xfinity Champion on there. Honestly, doing that makes the car fictional, and in my opinion, it makes it less valuable. I've never collected a champion car, nor do I plan to, because it's like it's not a real car, and when you put it with other cars, it just doesn't feel as authentic. Then next we got a double dose of Jimmy Johnson. First of all, we have Jimmy Johnson's 2006 Cup Championship car, where again it's like his normal car, but then on top it says Sprint Cup Champion. Again, I just don't think it's a good move to do that, but I mean, people like diehard Jimmy Johnson fans will get that car, so I understand why they have it. But they do have Jimmy Johnson's 2017 car up. I actually like the look of that car. So once it becomes available at my stores, which is either Target, Walmart, or Toys R Us, I don't go to Toys R Us because for whatever reason it's a lot more expensive there, so probably Walmart. I'll go ahead and get that car and then I'll eventually put that in as a diecast of the week. And then the final two, these are my two favorites. It's Tony Stewart's final ride car, the car they drove at Homestead, the same car that I painted for 10 Winners Challenge 5, the Homestead one, because I did not see anybody else make that car. So I went ahead, painted the car up, and it's up for download if you go to that video and then go to the description on that said video. And then the number one car that I'm really glad that they have available for this wave is Paul Menard's 27 car. Other than the throwback car, I've never seen that car in the Authentic Glide, and I'm so glad they did. Because Paul Menard is a beautiful car, but it's never up for availability. So it's right there, and that is my number one priority once it comes out. Now on some serious news, let's talk about Dave Steele. If you guys haven't heard, Dave Steele died in a sprint car crash in DeSoto Speedway in Bradenton, Florida. Now, according to Manatee County, which is in Florida, Sheriff's Office, what happened was Steele's left front wheel made contact with the right rear wheel of another car in turn number 1. And what that did is that shot Steele into the air, turned it 180 degrees into the outside wall, and he was pronounced dead 14 minutes after the crash. So now the reason I'm talking about him was because he was a NASCAR driver. In the year 2000, he drove the 82 Channel Lock car for Felix Sabates, as you know, worked with Chip Ganassi. He drove it for the first 3 races, but then he attempted 4 or so more races afterward, but he failed to qualify those. So they kicked Dave Steele out, and then the upcoming race was Bristol. They put Sterling Marlin in that car, and at the time Sterling Marlin was a part of Felix Sabates, and Sterling Marlin won the race. So throughout the rest of that season, they had a bunch of different drivers because Dave Steele couldn't get the job done. So Dave Steele, he drove some ARCA races, but then he found his footing in USAC and dirt racing. So this does bring up safety concerns, because what this brings up is the line. Because where's the line where it's like you got that safe, clean racing and then going out of control? Now personally, that's why I love racing, because it's like they are racing so out of control that any second now something bad happens. But then once something bad happens, we do need to back up and realize that these guys are putting their lives on the line just to put on a show for us, the fans. So it's an interesting conversation, and so the question we have to keep asking ourselves is, where is that line? Now let's take some time to answer some of your guys' questions. First of all, from Big Blue 97, he asked, what international track would I love to see NASCAR race at? I said Rockingham Speedway. Not the one in North Carolina, the one in the United Kingdom. It is a unique looking track, and it'd be cool to see NASCAR guys up in Britain. Because we know in the NFL, they go up to Great Britain and they have that special exhibition game there. It's not exhibition, it's during the regular season, my bad. But seeing NASCAR race up there, whether it is exhibition or during regular season, that'd be cool. And it'd be a good way for that exposure in NASCAR to spread around the world. Because I know they're interested in younger people and then the Latinos, and Latinas, of course. But it'll be interesting to get some of that British flavor as well. So the next question comes from Jonathan Mick, and he talked about why some of the announcers talk about some guys that end up going out of the race. Because sometimes Jeffrey Earnhardt, who would have such a poor car, he goes behind the wall, no one makes a statement about that. That is disappointing, honestly, and that's because every driver should be treated fairly and equally, no matter how powerful their vehicle is. Because lately, I've been watching a bunch of races from back in the day, and every time anybody goes behind the wall, the broadcaster would say, well, if you're fans of Kenny Wallace, let's just say for example, they would pick every driver because they were all treated fairly and equally. Nowadays, because Jeffrey Earnhardt's team is so poor, it's almost expected, and it's we see them go behind the wall. I wish they would say to all Jeffrey Earnhardt fans, because I know there are fans of Jeffrey Earnhardt out there. I wish he could get some more exposure along those lines. I'm disappointed that's not the case. And then the last question comes from Jay Barker, and he asked, do I watch Indy or F1? F1, no, because most of the time when an F1 race is on, I'm usually asleep and all I catch is the highlights. Indy, every so often. I do for sure watch the Indy 500, but like the timing has to be right. Like for example, I was able to watch the St. Petersburg race because it was before the NASCAR race, which was in the afternoon. I think it was during Las Vegas or something like that. I could be wrong, but I was able to watch the St. Petersburg race in the morning in preparation for the NASCAR race, just for fun. But one race I did watch in full that I totally remember was when they raced at Auto Club Speedway, when they were so close together, the one where Ryan Briscoe flipped. Yeah, the one. And then for the reason they stopped racing there because it was too exciting, if you will. I'll catch it every once in a while, but I don't like religiously watch it like NASCAR. Then in some late breaking news, Dave Rogers, the crew chief for Daniel Suarez, took a personal leave of absence. It is an indefinite leave. The person to replace Dave Rogers is Scott Graves. If that name sounds familiar to you, that is the same crew chief that was with Daniel Suarez the entire 2016 season when Daniel Suarez won the championship. So in my opinion, this is good for Daniel Suarez because now he has a familiar voice talking to him during a cup race. And so because of that, I think that combination could be good chemistry. And I can definitely see Daniel Suarez getting some better results. And not just, yeah, we've seen him in the top 10, but like actually being in front during like races throughout the entire race, you know? So hopefully this combination is good, but we'll just have to see. So now the second to last thing I want to talk about is penalties. That's something I really haven't talked about on this show, but if you guys have ever heard of Nascar Opinion on Twitter, he has a podcast now called the Nascast. I watched episode 10 about a couple of nights ago, and he talked about the inconsistency that penalties have nowadays. So at the end of the podcast, if you guys want to listen, it's about 4 to 5 minutes to the end. He talks about 3 specific penalties. First of all, he talked about AJ Allmendinger, one of the first people to have a penalty. He missed 3 lug nuts on one of the tires of his car, docked 35 points, crew chief was suspended 3 races, and the team was fined $65,000 for 3 lug nuts. Okay, let's keep going. Kevin Harvick. Now this was like a couple of weeks later. Or no, I think it was Atlanta, was it? Kevin Harvick. He had an unapproved track bar sliding system, if you will. He was only docked 10 races. Crew chief was suspended 1 race, and the team was fined $25,000. They did try to appeal it, but then they decided to remove it, and so this weekend, Ronnie Childress will not be on the crew chief booth for Kevin Harvick. And then finally, Brad Keselowski, he had weight and measurement failures, like they did not match up the weight and measurements at the end of post-race inspection. He was docked 35 points just like AJ Allmendinger. Crew chief was fined 3 races, in which they are appealing it, and they're fined $65,000. So, as NASCAR Opinion mentioned in his podcast, why the heck are 3 lug nuts missing the same penalty as having weight and measurement failures? Why is that the same? Because you can go ahead and totally mess up your car and it will be the same thing as missing 3 lug nuts. Like, are the lug nuts absolutely that severe? Like, does it really make that big of a difference? Like, I understand, like, NASCAR is really harping down on that, but I don't know, it just feels off for some reason. And then Kevin Harvick, when he had that unapproved touch bar sliding system, that I feel like should be higher because that's dealing with the entire car, not just lug nuts on the vehicle. And now, in my opinion, I think that the teams, they should judge themselves and they should make sure that their lug nuts are on. Because, I mean, I get it, safety and whatnot, but honestly, like, the penalties are so severe, and AJ Allmendinger has every right to be mad for having such a huge penalty just for missing lug nuts. And so I get it, safety and all that, but I mean, is it really that severe? Because, I mean, I get it, you want to be fast, but you also want to be precise as well. Because honestly, I think the worser fear isn't necessarily a fine, but the worst fear is crashing because you don't have all the lug nuts on the car. And then on that side note, talking about like the fight, how like the Kyle Busch fight and then the Austin Dillon incident, there were no penalties for that, yet look back 2 years, Matt Kenseth, who used his car to crash with Logano, suspended 2 races. So NASCAR, I don't care if you are as forgiving as a Christian or as hardcore as like Hitler and the Nazis. I'm just using that as a reference, please don't take that out of context. But I don't care where your rules are at, Please be consistent, though. That's all I ask. Just please be consistent in what you do, because that is one of many reasons that NASCAR fans are mad. And so I can go on another side tangent talking about like inconsistencies in adding drama in places that don't need drama, but that's for another episode. So NASCAR, I please ask that you go back to that penalty line, and then you guys need to make it black and white on what is good and what is not. Because Dale Jr. even mentioned it too, like, where's the line? Where can someone go and how far could they go both on the car and on the track so it doesn't mess them up, you know, in terms of penalties or whatever. All I care about is fair competition. And NASCAR, if you keep going in and like making things go right one way and not right the other way, that's just, it's confusing as heck, man. I just ask that you make things consistent. That's all I ask. Alright, so I went a little long there, so I'm going to go ahead and try to wrap this up. We got Martinsville this weekend. Only 38 cars are entered for this Cup race. So if any of you guys have 2 cars, you guys are more than welcome to join the Cup Series Race and Go 500 laps. No Xfinity Series this weekend, so we got trucks instead. 32 trucks are entered. The only Cup driver entered into the truck race is Chase Elliott, and he is back in the 23 truck. And that is my prediction to win at Martinsville. Chase Elliott will win the 23 truck. The driver to watch out for I got is Noah Gragson. And the reason why is because KBM engines are powerful, but also Noah Gragson is usually strong on short tracks. Because I mean, when he was in the Canon series, that's what he mostly drove, was short tracks. So definitely watch out for Noah Gragson when he does his thing at Martinsville. Now in terms of Cup, as I said, 38 drivers. But my prediction, I'm going to go a little far out there, and I think Joe Gibbs, they're going to end their dry spell, and I predict that Denny Hamlin will get another win at Martinsville. I'm saying this because in my predictions video a long time ago, I said Denny Hamlin will win in a short track, and I really hope so because I want at least one prediction to be right. I know I'm already screwed over with Kurt Busch, so I want to at least get something right with Denny Hamlin. Now the driver to watch out for, I'm going to say the boss man, Dale Earnhardt Jr. And the reason why for him is because he's also on a dry skid, but he's very good at Martinsville. He's won there before, and I think he's going to have a challenge for Denny Hamlin. So I don't think Dale Jr. will win, but watch out for him. So that is it. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. I'm so pumped about this announcement video. There's a lot of thought, there's a lot of motivation going into this video. I cannot wait to show it to you guys. So be sure to check that out. Also, Diecast of the Week every Wednesday. And then Grifftalks, you're seeing it now, and it's on every Friday. So tell your friends, tell your comrades, tell your friends of friends that this thing exists, and let's make NASCAR a better place. So thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, I will see you next time.